Alright, so there's no other way to put it. This year, Google has nailed the Pixel 9a, and after what I thought was a pretty underwhelming mid-ranger last year, this thing goes hard and is a return to form for the series. But despite that, it makes some seriously strange compromises, and we just have to talk about it. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and I can't lie, last year's Pixel 8a just felt like a toy from the moment I picked it up. And though the 9a still has a plastic back, it feels far nicer. It's a massive step up. It feels denser, more robust. It's now IP68 rated instead of IP67, so is more protected against water. I'm a big fan of the almost totally flush camera visor on the back too. Not only does it look better, but it's easier to get this phone in and out of your pocket without catching it. And I would have to guess that this also probably minimizes the risk of breaking those cameras. I cannot stress enough how much of an upgrade this feels over last year's Pixel 8a. It is stark and welcomed, so thanks for that, Google. That said, those bezels up front are still mighty chunky, and the selfie camera cutout has actually grown as well, despite there being no on-paper upgrade in sensor or lens, which is a little bit strange. And actually the cameras as a whole are a little weird. By the way guys, we're really trying to hit 500,000 subscribers, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that button, it means an awful lot to us. Cheers. What if I told you that the main camera on this phone is a pretty significant downgrade over last year? The sensor is not only lower in resolution by a quarter, but the sensor is also quite a bit smaller as well, now down to 1/2 inch in size. And in the real world, this camera doesn't suffer hugely due to the hardware disparity, even if it does seem very strange to downgrade hardware in the newer model. Whether it's the new software, the new Tensor G4 processor, maybe the manufacturing of that new sensor, there is certainly a bridge being covered with lesser hardware, and I found that in typical Pixel style, the 9a's photos came out very natural and unfettered. Nothing looked filmic or like a filter was being applied. There wasn't an overwhelming amount of sharpness or clarity or color. It all looked pretty spot on, and in good lighting conditions in particular, the untrained eye likely won't be able to tell these images apart from far more expensive phones out there, and that is a Pixel A series staple. The ultra-wide, I can't lie, is pretty weak and something that has been an issue on previous Pixel A cameras, but in good light, at least it does give you the option to capture more of the scene, which is always appreciated. And the super res zoom is simply just cropping in on that main sensor, where anything above 2 times, I don't know if I'd use those images, to be totally honest. It's nice to be able to zoom if you need to, but it's definitely not going to be a style choice because detail starts to really fall off past that 2 times limit, and with an already tiny sensor, you're just going to end up with a mushy photo. All in all though, this is once again one of the very best brand new camera packages in a smartphone at its price point. I'd argue you could maybe do better with a used Galaxy Ultra or even Pixel Pro, but for a fresh device with full warranty, brand new in box, this really is a great system despite its weakened underpinnings. Where there has been a clear upgrade though is in battery. This isn't a silicon carbon upgrade, but instead just a sheer capacity increase to 5100 mAh over last year's 4500, so over a 10% increase in battery size. And in the real world, it feels like there's a noticeable difference here. The Pixel 9a is a very reliable all-day phone for me, with 2 days I'd imagine being doable with some very light usage. I haven't really had long enough to really try that out and experiment, but usually my 1.5 day amount of battery out of this thing extrapolated with a little bit lower usage, I can see 2 days being definitely doable for the right person. And for a bit of context, that's with my Garmin Fenix 7 connected permanently and Bluetooth earbuds connected for about an hour per day. Charging is now up to 23 watts over a cable, but the wireless charging has remained at 7.5. So despite this small upgrade, it's still much slower than what you would find on similarly priced or even cheaper phones coming out of China. You know, you might pay less than this and expect 50 or 60 watts of charging, but you're just not getting that with really any of the Pixels, even the ones that cost 4 figures. But the reason you might be tempted to pick a Pixel 9 series over one of those Chinese phones is software. And for better or for worse, this isn't the full fat Google Pixel experience despite Material You, UI design and the likes of Magic Editor and Pixel Studio. This is likely due to the 8GB of memory available on this thing instead of the 12 that you get in the Pixel 9 and the 16 in the Pixel 9 Pro. And RAM is used heavily in AI applications. So whether you jump into the weather, there's just no AI summary, although that's not really a complaint because honestly that's quite a useless feature if I'm honest. There's no Pixel screenshots or cool notes. There is Pixel Studio here, which is handy for those that like a text to image generator, but there's a reason why I said for better or for worse. Because if, like me, you aren't a fan of or simply just don't care about AI, then this might actually be a positive for you. The less AI I have on my phone generally, the happier I tend to be. This isn't going to be ideal for everyone, but it's worth knowing before you buy. And despite this RAM discrepancy that might get in the way of AI in particular, the Tensor G4 processor we have here seems totally unlocked. So the same CPU and GPU performance that you get with the much more expensive Pixel 9, the 9 Pro and the 9 Pro XL. Though this combined with the slower UFS 3.1 storage isn't ideal. I would say that for people who love to doom scroll, watch long form video, and play the likes of sort of Crossy Road, Golf Battle, even a bit of 3D stuff like Minecraft, the 9A will give you enough performance. I just don't think it's at the level that some of its competition is, and that might be fine for you. This is not a superphone, and it doesn't compete performance-wise with the likes of the OnePlus 13R, but there's definitely enough here for the phone to feel quick, combined with that high refresh rate display, and should stay quick for a couple of years down the line, and just not hold on for as long as a higher spec phone. I said in my Pixel 9 Pro review that the performance of that phone was going to be enough for most people, and it's the same here. Mentioning that display, Pixels typically come with exceptional screens, especially the 9 series. Maybe not just in the way the specs pop off the screen, but the way they actually look in the hand when you use them. I complained last year about the Pixel 8a's pretty awful off-axis viewing angles, and I'm happy to say that they are way better on this phone. The bezels aside, this feels like a high-end screen, which is good because though $499 isn't crazy money, it's definitely not cheap either. Gladly, there's a lot here that helps lift the quality along with the chassis that I mentioned earlier to make the Pixel 9a feel more expensive. 120Hz OLED just feels great. The haptic vibrations that you feel when you type on the keyboard are very crisp. The side buttons feel tight and responsive. Add Me is here in the camera from the Pixel 9 as well. The software feels super clean and elevates these A-series devices, with this one having 7 years of software upgrades. So even if the performance isn't going to hold out till 2030, your phone will still at least be compatible with the newer apps. Though it must be said, the in-display fingerprint scanner, still optical, is decent, but it's not great. It's a ways off the ultrasonic unit that you'll find in even the step-up Pixel 9 model, let alone the Pro. But the thing with the Pixel 9a is that it feels more than the sum of its parts. The hardware on here isn't elite, but when you mix it with the chassis, the gorgeous design, that new bigger battery, and Google's software that seems to get stronger by the minute, especially pushing that camera hardware to its very limits, despite the drop in outright muscle. This phone isn't for enthusiasts, be that hardware or software, given that its cut down AI model is on here. It isn't for probably most people watching this video, to be honest, because most of you are going to be enthusiasts, and you know what? That's okay. But if you ask me if I had to have one of these or the iPhone 16e, every day of the week, it's the Pixel 9a. It's just easily the better mid-ranger, if you ask me. Google has handily redeemed itself after what I found last year to just be a very middling, disappointing piece of hardware. The 9a feels great, looks great, and should have you sorted for a good few years. The Pixel 9a goes hard. Guys, let me know in the comments what you think of this phone. Do you agree with me that it slaps, or are you underwhelmed? Do you even care about pixels at all? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section with the Android police community. It's always great to hear your opinions, and whilst you're down there, be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content and hit subscribe to never miss another upload. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I will catch you later. Cheers.